Now, value is also what's used to bring attention to a focal point in an illustration. So I'm going to show you this little illustration of a cat and a ball of yarn. And you can see that we've got the cat. Again, my values are very, very light. I've got this dark gray here. I've got a light gray. I've got an even lighter gray down here. It's almost non-existent, or it's almost white. So you guys can see, we've got this little cat here. Now, this could just be a very high-key image, and that's great, but it doesn't really have a focal point, even though we want to look at its face and what's closest to us. That seems like that's what the focal point should be. So if I do it and put in just a little bit of darkness, so now I'm going to have these same values are in play, right? They're still there for the cat, for the body of the cat, but I darkened up this side of his face a little bit, kind of made that a little bit darker. But crucially, I brought in this very dark color right here. So here on his paws and on the ball, I shaded that in very dark. And now, because that is the highest part of contrast on the piece, it is the greatest range of value. When I say the highest point of contrast and the greatest range of value, that is the same thing. The greatest range is going from black to white. The highest contrast is going from black to white. And as you can see that here in the piece, we're going from the dark black threads of the ball to the white around it. And now that becomes the focal point of our piece. And by adding the shadow around him, the shadow here, to his right side, all I've really done is lead the eye down to that ball of yarn. So you guys have probably heard the phrase, and if you haven't, it's time for you to hear it, the phrase that in an illustration, color gets all the credit, but value does all the work. And that is really true, because the reason we're talking about value before we talk about color is that if you don't have your values right, it doesn't matter what your color is, because your tone and value is really what drives the emotional resonance. It's really what tells the story. It's really what sets the tone for a piece. So let's take a look out here at how this might work in a couple of movie scenes. Okay, so you guys can see right here, I've got two movie scenes, one from Hercules, one from Lion King, right? And the colors are great. I'm actually going to come back to both of these images when we talk about color, because the one from Hercules is a great example of analogous color with one complementary color thrown in, and the Lion King is all analogous color. But let's see what it looks like if we did these two scenes in black and white. So now you can see I've got these scenes right here in black and white, and I've started pulling out some of the value from them, some of their little value scales. And you can see that for the most part, this scene from Hercules, it's got this, it's got this really dark. It's got, let me see, where did I get this from? It's got this, kind of slightly lighter gray right here, right under that. It's got this gray, which goes right here with this one. So we're all down here, all down at the bottom of the scale, even though over here, we don't really notice that because this feels like a very vibrant piece because of the color. But essentially, it's a very low-key piece because it's got all of these dark tones in it. Now, we do get to some light tones. Let's get in, Hercules skin tone. That's going to go somewhere right along in here. Let's say right about here. And then we do have Pegasus, who's very light. He's probably more up here. Yep, I had that plotted out. So as you can see, there's a couple of light tones, but for the most part, All of this piece is down here in the bottom range of the scale. And now let's look at where the greatest range of contrast is. So essentially, the greatest range of contrast, the highest point of value, the highest point of contrast, the greatest range of value is right in here. It's right here around Pegasus and where he lines up with the bushes, okay? And the reason for that, if you remember this scene from the movie, the reason for that is this is a scene where they're watching Meg do something, okay? And Hercules and, you know, his coach character, Danny DeVito, I cannot actually remember the name of the character from the movie, but they're watching this and they are, you know, they're upset. They're slightly, you know, they're upset, but they're not going to exaggeratingly show it. But Pegasus is. He, you know, as you can see, his, you know, he's really got his eyes bugging out. His mouth is going to droop way down, and this is going to draw our eye right here to this, because while it's important that you see these guys, you were already watching them, right? Because we know that they care more about Meg than Pegasus does. But Pegasus is the comic relief in this scene, so it's really important that you look at him. Now, all of that is to say that actually all of this, you know, this darkness out here on the outside, you can see this, all of this frames this whole scene of the characters, right? So the truth of the matter is that while there's this smaller range of contrast right here, all of this darkness is being used to keep your eye right here on the characters. It would be less impactful if those leaves and the bushes that they're peeking through were more this color. If they were all, you know, just light, just like this, and that's what they were peeking through, as you can see right away, it starts to flatten out the piece, right? I mean, nothing's really changing here, except that what they're looking through is a lighter, you know, element in the illustration, but it doesn't have nearly the dynamic range that the dark leaves do. So right away, that piece just, that use of the dark around them just makes them pop out more, and it gives more depth to the piece. Now let's look down here at The Lion King. Okay, y'all know this is from the opening, the whole, you know, it's from that whole scene, right? So this little moment where the gazelle raise their heads up to see what's happening actually happens really fast. But I pulled out some values from this, and you can see that this is also, you know, oops, that's actually even darker than that. It's actually really low down here. It's very, once again, very low in the scale. Even though it doesn't really seem that way, you know, it seems pretty vibrant. It's maybe right about there. It seems pretty vibrant when you're looking at it right here. Now, that's happening because of the color, which is great, but I don't want you to miss out on the fact that you can actually get that kind of dynamism with this very low range of color, or of contrast. And once again, let's look at where the highest point of contrast is, where's the greatest range of value in the piece. It's right here, okay? Right here, very easy. We want to see this guy raise his head first and look up there, and then, you know, we can see the other guys raise their heads. But it's okay. We already know this main character here in the foreground has told us that something important is happening right off the picture plane. So that's a little bit about how value works and how you can use it to plot out your focal point in an illustration, and how choosing values out of the entire range, you know, choosing values that are out of the range of the value scale. Let's go back over here to my big one. Choosing values that come from either end of the value scale. So here to here, or choosing values that are just right here, make your piece more dynamic. But what you're really trying to go for is to use that high range of contrast to draw your eye to a focal point, and you're trying not to use all of this, because all you're going to do is make your image really muddy with all those, just shades of gray all down in there.